Hello and a warm welcome to Federal special program Capital Beat. Political scientists Yogendra Yadav and Suhas Palshikar, they have threatened legal action against NCERT for allegedly publishing the new politically biased books under their names without consent amid the controversy which is surrounding around the deletions made in the NCERT books. Now, what is the letter which both of them have written to the NCERT? I'm just reading the operative part of that letter so that it gives you an idea what exactly Yogendra Yadav and Suhas Palshikar are wanting to tell the NCERT. Now, both of them have written a letter saying that both of us do not want NCERT to hide behind our names to pass on to students uh, such textbooks of political science that are politically biased, academically indefensible, and pedagogically dysfunctional. And they have said that if the books are not withdrawn from the market, then they will be forced to take legal recourse. Now, this is one controversy that the names of Yogendra Yadav and Suhas Palshikar are being used without the consent. That is one bit. But of course, the larger controversy is that why should these deletions be made in the NCERT books? Say, for example, just 2 or 3 days before, the NCERT director, Mr. Saklani, said that from now on, we can use both Bharat and India. India will be replaced with the word Bharat, and it can be used interchangeably. Likewise, there are so many deletions related to Gujarat riots, Babri Masjid. There's so many examples since last year. It's a huge pending issue. But the biggest question is that what is the kind of impact it will have on the students? What will it do to the teachers? What kind of classrooms are we trying to cultivate in a country like this? All this we'll try and discuss. We have two eminent panelists with us, Professor Aditya Mukherjee from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, a renowned historian. So thank you so much for joining. We have Professor Ajay Gudavarti, again from JNU, and he follows the political philosophy and social movements very, very clearly. Thank you so much, Professor Gudavarti. And I'll begin with Professor Aditya Mukherjee. Professor Mukherjee, first of all, that the names of Yogendra Yadav and Suhas Palshikar being used without their consent. Last year only, Yogendra Yadav has sent a mail saying that, we don't want to associate ourselves with any kind of these deletions which are happening. But even then, the books are printed, they are out in the market. So what would you say?
I think Yogendra Yadav and Suhas Palshikar are absolutely within their rights, and what they're doing is absolutely right. There is no way one can change somebody else's texts as they wish. This objection was raised earlier. The first time the BJP tried to do these deletions in 1999, 2004, when there was the BJP regime, they did it to the books of R.S. Sharma, Romila Thapar, Bipin Chandra, and Satish Chandra, eminent scholars by any standards, right? And without consulting them. And again, the same thing they were said, the writers must protest. It is none of their business to make the changes. If they say that the books are too big, they need to be summarized, you ask the writers first to do it. And they should choose what can be removed, need not be removed. What they have done is, as you know, that using the excuse that COVID had made it very difficult for children, so to lighten the burden, this is what Mr. Saklani said several times on television, that to lighten the burden of the students, they have removed, as he called, some faltu parts. Now, what he decides is faltu is amazing. I'll give you one example. These were motivated changes. The first comes a statement from the Prime Minister and the Home Minister that the history that has been taught to children is concocted, it needs to be changed, right? Then NCERT makes these changes. And immediately when they make the changes, comes the statement of a BJP leader, Kapil Mishra, that the removal of the Mughals was a very good idea because they are nothing but thieves, pocket mars, and street level, sadak chap log hai. And they belong, he said, in the dustbin. This is Kapil Mishra, quoted in Hindustan Times. And he said, after the Mughals have been removed, the lies about the Mughals have been removed, we'll tell the truth. That how they tortured and the relationship they had with their children, how many wives, all kinds of real scum, he mentioned. So the intention is that. I'll give you even more telling example. In the political science book, which Yadav and Palsikar are talking about, there is a sentence where they're talking about the making of the Indian Constitution. Hmm? And they're saying that people like Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, Maulana Azad chaired several committees and contributed to the making of the Constitution. You know what was removed? Maulana Azad. Two words. Two words lightened the burden of the students. So
Hmm.
this is motivated. This is to erase the Muslims out of our history. Hmm?
Right.
And now excuses are being made. And again, in the current one, the latest deletions, you find what have they deleted? The name of Babri Masjid is gone. So nothing. As you know, as they said, nobody killed Jessica, nobody demolished the Babri Masjid. Nothing happened. It was a structure, it fell on its own. Nobody is responsible. Similarly, they have done with Gandhiji's murder. Hmm? They've removed the parts which said that why he was assassinated, that what Gandhiji believed, that his sort of he was willing to give up his life for Hindu-Muslim unity. That was a central belief in him, a belief that he had, and because of that, an extremist Hindu killed him. Now that got eliminated. So these are motivated changes, and they have no business to do it in other people's texts. Hmm?
Hmm.
If they
Yes.
have the capacity, let them bring out new texts. But these texts should not be written by politicians. They should be written by social scientists, historians, political scientists of eminence. What the NCERT does is essentially consult probably the RSS, and RSS kind of thinking kind of people, and that's it. That is not how you make textbooks. And that too for the NCERT. NCERT was supposed to create model textbooks. you know the whole strategy of creating textbooks which are written by the tallest scholars of the country. Mind you, this was very original. In no country does this happen. In no country does a scholar or Professor Romila Thapa's repute, write a textbook for class 6 children. you know and the result was that India produced one of the world's best textbooks. I gave you only a historian's example, but it is also true of the other social sciences. They were written by absolutely top class historians, political scientists, sociologists, etc. Now they have no business to mess with this even without consulting. You may not agree with the particular social scientist, then please set up a committee of
Right.
eminent people, and if you then you want to make changes, you can. But nothing of this. There is no procedure followed at all. It is a matter of utter shame that this is happening to our education system.
Right. Now, let me come to Professor Ajay Gudawardi. Now, what happens now since the books are out in the market, they've already been published. Now, if Yogendra Yadav and Suhas Palchikar, they go to the court, then will the NCRT book, supposing if there is a favorable order by the court, then what will happen? Will the books be withdrawn? Will the deletions be cancelled? How do you see the things unfolding then?
So, Neelu, the point is that it's not about going to court, which is important. That's more of a desperate move by Yogendra and Suhas, that they had no other option but resort to going to court. But the issue is this: that why would NCRT want someone to take credit for textbooks when they wish to withdraw? Why is it that? Is it because they do not have intellectuals of their own with repute that they need to piggyback on Mr. Yogendra and Suhas Palsikar's reputation? What is that they wish to do here? Is that they want to cancel out the mention of Gujarat riots, they want to cancel out mention of Rath Yatra, they want to cancel out a mention of Babri Masjid. The point, even the director made a very interesting point. It's quite a disturbing point, actually, saying that teaching about riots is very disturbing and depressing for the kids. So, indulging and engineering riots is not as depressing as talking about that. This denial is a very, very important historical event. If you remember, Nilu, in Holocaust, Germany has made it legally a punishable offense to deny Holocaust. It's not because Germans are fond of remembering Holocaust and they don't relish Holocaust. But the point of not denying Holocaust is precisely not to repeat the same mistakes in history. And if you have been to Germany, if you walk the streets of Germany, even the names of those who were executed, their places where they lived, their names on the street, pebbles are all located. History is facing at you because you Germans needed to be guilty of what happened. Not only the Nazis, but the indifference of the common German in everyday life is what Germany really wanted to recount. I see a similar parallel here. That you do not want to recollect Gujarat riots, you do not want to recollect demolition of Babri Masjid, but by that, are you trying to condemn what has happened? Are you trying to put responsibility on some social forces who are responsible for such a? No. You simply want to erase history, but claim the event. That you want to, in other words, it's a serendipitous way of justifying that event without pricking one's conscience. So this is a larger, Hindutva method that they are following. That people don't need to publicly discuss, but you stay with the consequences. You own up the event wherever you need. But the disturbing part of it, where lives are involved, where people have been killed, you don't want that to go public, and that's where you don't want to disturb. So this entire it's very disturbing in terms of its social and long-term social and political consequences. That it's a very oblique way of justifying violence. This is what it is. It's an oblique way of justifying violence without allowing for a possible criticism of those events. When you teach kids these things in classrooms, and we know in JNU, Professor Mukherjee, and when we go into classroom, teach students raise different points of view. You can still go ahead and teach. You might still have students who might still justify these events, might think that India needs to become an ethnic or Hindu democracy. That's fine. In the classroom, you can always engage students. We have students even in JNU who take some positions, but we as teachers engage them, try to convince them of how history needs to be looked at. So it's also a summary assault on dialogic culture, on classroom environment, and on the autonomy of institutions.
All right. So that is exactly what I wanted to come to Professor Mukherjee on, that, what is the kind of impact it's really going to have on the students? A student who has been studying ancient history for a few years now, all of a sudden will go to class 11 and find some portions deleted. Now, what does it do to the thought process of the students? How will they absorb these facts and stories from the history books? How will they take it up? And what does it do to their minds in the long run?
There's a lot of damage it does, but let me just uh, mark three main damages that it does. One, as Ajay very correctly said, that in the name of not celebrating violence or pointing out violence, or in the name of pride, you erase parts of your history. And he gave the very good example of the Germans. Suppose the Germans said that we don't want to talk about genocide, nothing happened. Now they've done exactly this in India. They wanted to remove from Professor R.S. Sharma's book. He was a doyen of ancient Indian history. All references to caste oppression. You just wish it away. There are no Dalits. There is no slavery like conditions that existed in India. Then this cannot be done. This is no way to create pride. You have to first accept what is wrong, so that you do not repeat it. Number one. Number two, what it does, the second thing they're doing is they are there is a pattern to the changes. They are trying to erase the Muslim heritage of India. They're trying to remove their names, as they are removing the names from the streets and railway stations and everything. Anything even sounding a little bit like Muslims has to go, isn't it? Allahabad has to change, Mughal Sarai has to change, and whatnot. And the demonizing of a community. Now, genocide studies in the world have shown that before a genocide occurs, this is exactly the pattern that is followed. That you erase a community from history, from public view, from books, from streets, from everywhere, and you demonize, and you push them into ghettos. And once these three things happen, genocide follows. So this has been seen globally. This has been seen in Turkey, for example, what they did to the Armenians. Identical. And I think this is the direction in which they are moving. After all, the changes in history, the demonizing of the Muslims, and the open calls for genocide, open calls that have been given in this country. Hmm? Hindus, please arm yourselves. Don't buy toys. Don't buy this. Don't buy TVs. Buy guns, because you have to eliminate your enemies. Now this is happening. So I think this is serious business. It's not just keep a faulty textbook has gone in. It's serious business because it impacts what kind of society we are going to create. It impacts whether we will be a democratic nation or not. If our children are taught as they are taught in fascist societies, in authoritarian societies, if their minds are completely brainwashed, as is happening, for example, in Russia today. You know, now do we want our children's mind to be brainwashed so that they will not be thinking people? They will not have no analytical capacity. They will not be able to distinguish good from bad, you know, and they will only worship what they are asked to worship. One man, one religion, one language, one everything. I mean, this is absurd. And I think Professor Yadav and Professor Palsikar have taken a very good initiative. I think all academics in India, worth their salt, must take this up on a war footing. What they are doing to our education system is so dangerous, is that it is not funny. They send their own children abroad now for education because they've virtually demolished the education system in our country.
Right. So this is the kind of impact it would have on the students. But Professor Ajay Gudavardi, what about the teachers? I'm not talking about professors like you, but there would be many professors who would be scared to give their own logic, to give their own points of view in the fear that what if I, okay, it's not there in the books, but supposing if a student gathers some courage to ask a question on Babri Masjid or the Gujarat riots or Gandhi's assassination, if the teacher explains, what does it do to the teacher? Does he or she risk his job, like what we saw last year? A few online teachers who spoke about jobs and all, and they lost their jobs and their videos became viral. What is it really going to do to the teachers? Can the teachers really think in that bracketed fashion that, okay, this portion is there in the book, I'll only talk about this? What does it do to the teachers?
You're right, in saying that this is, at certain point in time, in JNU we were told that CCTV cameras ought to be introduced into classrooms so that, of course, the logic they gave was that this can be recorded over a period of time for access for students from remote areas. So they will give lot of number of progressive, inclusive reasons, but the end purpose is really a close surveillance. And the point of all of this is that they wish to really change our sense of reality, change public morality in India, whereby certain forms of justifying violence of certain groups of the majority community against minority is justified under all circumstances, and any kind of response from the minority community remains unjustified. You've seen what happened during the Delhi riots. People who gave open calls for violence, there was no action. But on the other hand, those minority students, come Muslims, who were even talking about love and compassion between communities, were unfairly punished. So I think the writing is on the wall that there is a kind of a homogeneous ethnic majoritarian state that is to be created. But the problem is in terms of public morality. If people start thinking along those lines, then you will have a circumstance where this violence can spill over, become spontaneous. It can simply go out of control. I mean, those social forces today which think that they can gain a control over a narrative setting, even they can be victimized if majoritarian logic of what is the majoritarian logic? Majoritarian logic questions rule of law, questions sense of natural justice. If these basic ethics on which democracies are built, if they are destroyed, nobody is safe. It's not just about the left and right. It's not about teachers who are critical of them. Because if impunity becomes a mass culture, then anybody can be lynched, anybody can be criticized. Even tomorrow, there are differences within right wing, let's say between one group and another group, and we have seen this kind of implosion happen on many occasions. One group will think it is justified to use violence against others, and we have witnessed this in last 10 years in university after universities. Student bodies beating up teachers, student bodies beating up vice chancellors, students taking control and deciding who needs to be appointed. An extension of this will be to decide who will teach what, and branding people without any deliberation. You can brand someone an urban Naxal, you might brand someone a terrorist, and we saw this in the last regime. BJP went to the extent of branding Congress party, which is a centrist liberal party, as a terrorist party. This kind of language has no bounds. It can become an infinite language which can keep extending. And what the right wing forces, including RSS, needs to understand is that even they will not have any safety, because anybody in this kind of culture of impunity will think it is natural for you to burst out, express violence, verbal abuse, can become the order of the day. So rule of law is a significant part, and I see in these moves that complete destruction of rule of law. Some of the right might feel that they have an initial advantage by doing this, but eventually everyone gets engulfed, and that's what, again, I take you back to Germany. In Germany, even white children were not safe. Germany, Nazis did not merely attack the Jews, but then that spread to communists, then that spread to immigrants from East Europe, then that spread to white kids who suffered from autism and disability. Even they were executed. So once you have this kind of culture of impunity and contempt, I also see this, we need to extend this debate and argue that what is hidden in this is contempt for the weak. Anybody who's weak, whether it's numerically weak, whether it's caste-wise weak, whether it is gender weakness, whether it's class weakness, whether it is regional weakness and regional variations, you are encouraging contempt. If one societies begin to have contempt for the weak, whether it's Dalit, whether it is women, or whether it is Muslims, then democracies cannot survive. Nor does authoritarianism survive. Even no kind of an order can survive with this kind of public morality.
Absolutely. So now I'll come for the concluding remarks to Professor Mukherjee. That do you think anything will change with the new mandate which the government has got? Because we still see the Education Ministry is very much with the BJP. They are going ahead with the agenda. What is the hope that things might change, or we are really going to see the next 5 years where books will be trashed, deletions will be made aggressively, and what will it do to the students and the teachers in the long run? What is it going to do to the classrooms in the long run if there is no stopping
We've,
it?
we've already discussed what it is doing to the teachers and students. I would just like to add that this atmosphere of fear, what has happened in JNU, for example, in JNU there's a statue of Jawaharlal Nehru, and just below that is written what a university should be. In which he talks of the mind being fearless. He talks of the adventure of ideas, and what is happening into the universities now. As Ajay said, that a group of students can go and say that you cannot hold this seminar. In Madhya Pradesh, a major university was holding a seminar, an international seminar online, on scientific temper, something as harmless as scientific temper. A group of students, from which section, went and said this cannot happen because the speaker, one of them was Muslim, Professor Gawhar Raza, a major scientist and a poet, and the other was Apurvanan, another very well-known scholar. They said that if they come and speak, there will be disturbance because they are, they are controversial people. The police entered the campus, told the vice chancellor, "You cannot hold this conference." Vice chancellor said, "Look, it is online. The foreign partners have not agreed to call it off, so it is happening." So the police ensured that the computers were not switched on. I mean, can you imagine this is happening in India, in our country? Hmm? I can imagine because in my university, they picked up students, they beat up faculty in police presence. So there is this, they're creating this atmosphere of fear. So what will happen in the future, and is the next question. I do believe that this election results does show that the common people, are standing up and saying enough is enough. that they do not want an autocratic regime. They do not want a king. They want a democratic system. And as for the, but what I think, what we as members of the intelligentsia, and those who are involved in the education system need to do is to add this dimension that freedom in education, hmm, freedom of the mind is a critical element in the saving of democracy. It's a
Absolutely.
critical element. Often it is forgotten. You think that just throwing out BJP is enough. I think even if they lost the election completely, the battle would just have begun because they have poisoned the minds of of the Indian people. You have to take out this poison, and that requires a lot of time and effort. And I think we need to focus on that.
I think, and I'm sure there's going to be a sustained effort, some kind of a campaign towards this, because if more and more deletions keep happening and these kind of books getting printed, so of course it will give rise to another movement, and that will be an academic movement initiated by people like Professor Mukherjee and Professor Gudavardi. It was pleasure having both of you on the program. Thank you so much for joining on the Federal. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching this discussion: subscribe to our channel, send us a feedback, and stay tuned to the Federal. Thank you.